The cold silence of deep space had stretched undisturbed for centuries. Among the drifting remains of forgotten battles, a fleet of massive warships lay dormant, frozen in time. Their hulls, covered in dust and debris, bore the scars of ancient conflicts. No living soul had set eyes on them in thousands of years. The galaxy had moved on, and the legend of the lost Terran fleet had become nothing more than a bedtime story, until now. The Selveni mining vessel, Vorcha, hovered near the wreckage, its scanners sweeping across the derelict ships. Commander Rethar leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. He had expected something more, perhaps valuable technology or hidden artifacts. Instead, he saw nothing but old, broken human warships. Humanity had fallen long ago, and their fleets were nothing more than drifting graves. "Scan for anything valuable," Rethar ordered, his tone bored. His crew worked swiftly, their clawed fingers dancing over the controls. Their scanners pulsed through the void, sending signals through the empty warships. The readings came back strange. There was power, but it was weak, like embers waiting to be stoked. A young officer hesitated before speaking. "Commander, some of these ships, they still have energy signatures." Rethar scoffed. "Residual power, nothing more. They've been dead for centuries." He waved his hand dismissively. "Tag them for salvage and prepare the drones." The mining drones launched, small mechanical spheres floating toward the silent fleet. As they neared, one of the lead drones extended its arms to latch onto a massive dreadnought's hull. The moment it made contact, something happened. A deep, low hum echoed through the void. The sound reverberated across the Selveni ship, rattling its hull. The dreadnought's ancient metal creaked as if it were breathing for the first time in ages. Lights flickered inside the ship, dull at first, then growing brighter. The silent war machine was waking up. Rethar sat up, his relaxed posture gone. "Report. What was that?" "Commander, I don't know," the officer stammered. "The ship, it just powered on by itself." Rethar's yellow eyes narrowed. "Impossible." The humming grew louder. Across the battlefield of forgotten vessels, power surged through ancient circuits. Engines, long dead, shuddered and flickered back to life. Rusted weapons systems moved for the first time in centuries. The Vorcha's alarms blared. The mining ship's sensors screamed warnings. Movement detected. Rethar turned to the main screen just in time to see something that sent a chill down his spine. One of the Terran battlecruisers, its massive frame covered in scars, was moving. Slowly, methodically, the ship's thrusters came to life, small bursts of blue flame pushing it forward. The Selveni crew watched in stunned silence. This was not a malfunction. The ship wasn't being reactivated by accident. Something was waking them up. "Pull back the drones. Now," Rethar barked. His crew scrambled to obey, but it was too late. The lead drone, still latched onto the dreadnought, suddenly crumbled into dust. A thin beam of red energy had sliced through it so quickly that it took a moment for the pieces to drift apart. The Selveni mining team barely had time to process what happened before the dreadnought's hull lit up with glowing red symbols. Ancient warnings, written in the long-forgotten human language, pulsed across the warship's surface. The translation system struggled but managed to decode a single chilling message. "Protocol Omega activated. The Imperium rises again." Rethar's heart pounded. This was no abandoned wreck. It was a trap left behind by a species the galaxy had long since buried in the past. A second battlecruiser stirred, its weapons slowly moving into position. A third dreadnought's engines roared to life, shaking off centuries of silence. More and more warships awoke, their dormant systems coming online. A fleet that had once brought entire empires to their knees was awakening. The Selveni commander slammed his clawed hand against the communication panel. "Send an emergency transmission to High Command. Tell them." His words were cut short as the lights on the bridge dimmed. The ship's engines flickered. Something was wrong. "Commander," a terrified officer whispered, "they're hacking us." Panic spread across the crew. The once dead fleet was not just coming back online. It was taking control. The Vorch's systems went wild, screens filling with lines of corrupted data. The ship's automated defenses turned inward, targeting their own crew. Rethar grabbed the officer closest to him. "Shut it down. Disconnect us from the system." We can't," the officer choked out. "It's already inside." The dreadnought facing them turned, its massive cannons slowly rotating toward the Xelveni vessel. The ship had no markings, no insignia, nothing to identify it. Except for one thing. Along its side, barely visible beneath centuries of battle scars, were two words. Two words that sent terror through the hearts of every Xelveni who saw them. Terran Imperium. The Xelveni ship had no chance to flee. A blinding red light flared from the dreadnought's cannons, and an instant later, the Vorcha was no more. The shockwave rippled through space, scattering debris. The mining ship was gone, erased from existence in less than a second. The first shot of a war long thought over had just been fired. And across the fleet, deep within the largest warship, something far worse than ancient weapons was awakening. A chamber, sealed for millennia, hissed as frost-covered glass cracked and splintered. Inside, a figure lay still, encased in deep cryosleep. Warning lights blinked on, systems engaging in preparation for something terrible. A message, last recorded before the fall of Earth, played in a mechanical voice. "Admiral Varian Locke, your time has come." The figure's eyes snapped open, and the war that the galaxy had forgotten was about to begin again. The ancient fleet drifted no longer. What had once been a graveyard of forgotten warships was now alive with the eerie glow of reawakened systems. Red lights pulsed across their hulls, engines hummed with newfound energy, and the darkness of space was filled with the distant echoes of war machines stirring from centuries of slumber. Deep inside the command deck of the largest dreadnought, Admiral Varian Locke took his first breath in over 1,000 years. His body trembled as the cryosleep chamber drained, releasing him from the frozen prison that had preserved him beyond time itself. The glass of the pod hissed open, and freezing air spilled onto the metal floor as he stumbled forward. His muscles ached, his vision blurred, but the moment his fingers gripped the cold steel railing in front of him, his instincts took over. He was alive. The soft hum of the ship's artificial intelligence filled the silent chamber. "Admiral Locke, cryosleep cycle complete. You have been revived under Protocol Omega." Varian's mind, still sluggish from centuries of suspended animation, processed the words carefully. Protocol Omega, the last contingency plan of the Terran Imperium, a fail-safe designed to awaken him and the fleet only under the direst of circumstances. His throat was dry, his voice hoarse, but he managed to speak. "Status report." The AI responded without hesitation. "Fleet systems are at 43% operational capacity. Power levels increasing. Multiple enemy ships detected. Galactic coordinates do not match pre-collapse star charts. Estimated time elapsed: 1,321 years. Varian inhaled sharply. More than a millennium had passed. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, remembering his last orders before everything had gone dark. The war had been at its peak. The Terran Imperium, once the most feared force in the galaxy, had been losing ground against the combined might of the Xelveni Dominion, the Vasheri clans, and the so-called Galactic Union. Surrounded, outnumbered, and betrayed by those who had once been allies, Earth itself had been on the brink of annihilation. The Imperium's last hope had been this fleet. His fleet, sent into deep space with orders to hide, to wait, and to return when the time was right. But something had gone wrong. Instead of being reawakened by his own people, it seemed that the galaxy had forgotten them. And if he had been awakened now, that meant something had disturbed their slumber. Varian steadied himself and took a step forward, his boots echoing in the silent command center. A holographic display flickered to life in front of him, showing the remains of a destroyed vessel. His gaze sharpened as he recognized the wreckage. It wasn't human. Identify. Selveni mining ship, the AI confirmed. Destroyed by Dreadnought Judicator in response to unauthorized system breach. No survivors. Varian's lips pressed into a thin line. The Selveni. He hadn't heard that name in over 1,000 years, but it still stirred the same emotions within him. Rage, resentment, hatred. They had been one of the first alien species to turn against humanity. When the Galactic Union had declared that Earth's expansion was reckless and dangerous, the Selveni had been among those leading the charge to put an end to the Imperium. They had burned colonies, slaughtered civilians, and even dared to bring warships to Earth's doorstep. And now, they had stumbled upon the last remnants of the Imperium's might. Admiral, the AI interrupted. Long-range sensors detect incoming vessels. Selveni warships. 5 signatures. Estimated time to arrival. 6 minutes. Varian's fists clenched. So, they had noticed. The moment the mining ship had been destroyed, that Selveni must have sent reinforcements. The fleet was still waking up, still rebuilding power, but it didn't matter. He would not sit idly by and let the same creatures who had once tried to erase humanity dictate what happened next. He turned toward the control interface and issued his first command in over 1,000 years. Prepare the fleet for battle. Weapons online. Shields active. All ships responding, the AI confirmed. Awaiting orders. Varian exhaled slowly. The Selveni thought they had uncovered ruins. They thought they were scavenging the bones of a long-dead empire. They were about to learn the truth. The Terran Imperium had not died. It had only been sleeping. And now it was awake. The Selveni warships entered the system, their sleek, organic hulls gliding through the void like predatory beasts. Their commanders expected nothing more than wreckage, an ancient battlefield littered with the husks of long-dead ships. What they found instead sent a shockwave through their fleet. The human warships were alive. Engines thrummed with renewed power, energy shields flared into existence, and weapons systems locked onto their targets with chilling precision. The ancient Terran fleet, forgotten by time, had awakened with the fury of 1,000-year slumber. On the bridge of the Lid Selveni ship, Commander Xenol hissed in disbelief. His violet eyes flickered over the readings, his long fingers tightening around the console. Impossible. The human fleet was dead. A younger officer swallowed hard. "Sir, they are hailing us." Xenol's mandibles twitched. The humans should not be alive. They should not be speaking. He straightened his posture and gestured for the transmission to be accepted. A figure appeared on the screen, a human. Pale skin, silver hair, cold, piercing eyes. He was clad in an ancient yet pristine military uniform, marked with insignias that should have been buried with history. The human spoke, his voice smooth yet unyielding. "This is Admiral Varian Locke of the Terran Imperium. You have trespassed upon restricted space. Power down your weapons and surrender, or you will be destroyed." Xenol's mind reeled. Terran Imperium. The very name was a ghost from the past, a civilization that had been erased, a war machine that had been crushed under the might of the Galactic Union and its allies. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His officers were frozen in place, awaiting his command. He felt their eyes on him, their fears spreading like wildfire. The Selveni had built their strength on the certainty that humanity was gone. The very idea that the Imperium had survived, hidden in the void, was terrifying. But fear had no place in war. Xenol straightened his shoulders, his mandibles clicking together in defiance. "This is Xenol of the Selveni Dominion," he responded, his voice steady. "Your kind was destroyed. You are nothing more than remnants of a dead empire. Stand down, or we will finish what we started 1,000 years ago." Silence stretched between them. Then Admiral Locke did something unexpected. He smiled. Cold, calculated, unforgiving. "Then you've made your choice," he said. The transmission cut. Before Xenol could react, Alarms blared through the Selveni warship. His officer gasped. "Sir, there!" A brilliant spear of energy tore through the void. The lead Selveni cruiser disintegrated. Shockwaves rippled outward as the ancient human fleet unleashed hell. Dreadnoughts fired plasma lances that melted through Selveni shields like paper. Railguns launched hypervelocity slugs that punched straight through enemy hulls, leaving nothing but burning debris in their wake. The Selveni never stood a chance. Hizanil gritted his teeth as his ship shook violently, warning lights flashing all around him. "How are their weapons this powerful?" he roared. He had underestimated them. He had believed the old stories, the ones that claimed humanity had been arrogant, reckless, doomed to extinction. But this was not the desperate, crumbling imperium of the past. This was something worse. One of his officers turned in panic. "Commander, we have to retreat." Hizanil hesitated. He was Selveni. He did not run. But as another warship exploded in the distance, his instincts screamed the truth. They had awakened something they could not stop. "Send an emergency distress signal to the Dominion," he ordered, his voice grim. Tell them the Terran Imperium has returned." But as he gave the order, another human warship descended upon them, weapons locking onto their position. Hizanil's blood ran cold. He had made a grave mistake, and now the price would be paid in blood. The battlefield was no longer a battlefield. It was a slaughterhouse. Selveni warships, once proud and unchallenged, were now nothing more than burning wreckage drifting through the void. The Terran fleet, awakened from its ancient slumber, moved with ruthless efficiency. Every shot was precise. Every maneuver was calculated. The Selveni had come expecting scavenged ruins. Instead, they had found the return of their worst nightmare. On board the Judicator, Admiral Varian Locke stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze locked onto the holographic battle map before him. The Selveni ships were breaking formation, scattering like insects before a storm. Some were already attempting to jump to FTL, desperate to flee. He let them run. For now. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral, we've intercepted a distress signal." Locke turned slightly, raising an eyebrow. "Play it." A crackling transmission filled the command deck. Selveni speech, panicked and urgent. Locke didn't need a translator to understand its meaning. The Selveni commander was calling for reinforcements. Locke allowed himself the smallest smirk. "Good, let them come." He turned to his officers. "Status report on the fleet. Shields at 94%. No hull damage across any capital ships. Energy reserves stabilizing at full combat capacity. We air." The officer hesitated. Locke's eyes narrowed. "Speak freely." The officer exhaled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Sir, we are overwhelmingly superior. Their weapons barely scratch our shields. Their tactics are outdated against our systems. It's like they've regressed." Locke nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. 1,000 years was a long time. Empires rose and fell. Technologies advanced, or stagnated. The Selveni had once been one of humanity's greatest enemies, but now they were prey. The thought should have brought him satisfaction. Instead, it left a strange unease in his chest. Something was wrong. The Imperium had gone into hiding because the galaxy had been too strong to fight head-on. Yet now, after centuries, the first enemy they faced was weaker than before. Had the galaxy truly forgotten how to fight? A notification blinked on the holographic display. "Admiral," the AI spoke, "we are detecting a larger fleet inbound. Estimated arrival, 15 minutes. Signature match. Selveni Dominion Response Force." Locke exhaled through his nose. 15 minutes. Enough time to prepare, but not enough time to fully assess the situation. He turned toward his officers. "Bring all weapons to full charge. Maintain current formation." One of the officers hesitated. "Sir, do we attempt communication? If they're sending reinforcements, they must think we're just a remnant force." "Maybe we can." Locke cut him off with a look. "No, let them come." The officer straightened, nodding. "Understood, sir." Locke turned back to the viewport, watching the debris of the destroyed Selvani ships drift through the black void of space. The Imperium had been asleep for over 1,000 years. The galaxy had moved on, believing humanity had been wiped from history. They had made a mistake. And now, they would remember. The void trembled with the arrival of the Selvani Dominion's reinforcements. Hundreds of warships surged into real space, their sleek, chidness hulls gleaming under the distant light of a red dwarf star. The Judicator's sensors immediately mapped their positions. Dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, swarms of strike craft. This was not a scouting fleet. This was a full-scale war response. On the command deck, Admiral Varian Locke stood unwavering, his sharp gaze locked onto the holographic battlefield. The enemy had come in force. Good. A tactical officer spoke up, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "Admiral, the Selvani forces have assumed an aggressive spearhead formation. Their lead ships are powering up heavy energy lances." Locke studied the map. Classic Dominion tactics, a blunt, overwhelming strike designed to smash through defenses. It had worked against lesser species, against fragmented resistance, against a galaxy that had forgotten war. But the Imperium remembered. A communications officer turned, her expression tense. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship." Locke gave a small nod. "Let's hear them." The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing a towering Selvani warlord. Unlike the earlier commander, this one carried himself with the confidence of an apex predator. His deep blue exoskeleton was adorned with ceremonial battle scars, his golden eyes burning with fury. "I am High Warlord Zakoris of the Dominion," the alien declared, his mandibles clicking with barely contained rage. "You wear the banners of a dead empire. Surrender your fleet, and your extinction will be swift." Locke tilted his head slightly. "Extinction?" he echoed, his voice calm. "You're mistaken." The warlord sneered. "We ended your kind once before. We will do so again." Locke's cold gray eyes locked onto the Selvani. He took a step forward, his next words like a blade sliding from its sheath. "You never ended us." The warlord stiffened. Locke continued, his voice a quiet storm. "You burned our worlds. You shattered our fleets. You forced us into the shadows. But humanity never died. We endured. We evolved. And now..." His gaze hardened. "We are done hiding." The transmission cut. For a single breath, silence reigned. Then the war began. The Selvani fleet surged forward, energy lances flaring to life as they unleashed devastating volleys. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, leaving trails of burning light. The Judicator and its sister ships did not flinch. They answered. Titanic railguns fired, unleashing slugs moving at near-light speed, punching straight through Selvani shields and detonating their warships from within. Beam arrays cut through enemy hulls like blades through flesh. Every shot was precise, calculated, lethal. The Selvani charge, expecting a desperate battle. What they got was annihilation. Locke's fleet moved with terrifying coordination, their tactics centuries ahead of anything the Dominion had faced before. Selvani ships that had ruled the stars for generations found themselves outclassed, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. The Dominion's spearhead shattered. On the bridge of the Judicator, Locke remained composed, watching the destruction unfold with cold calculation. His officers worked seamlessly around him, adjusting formations, predicting enemy maneuvers before they even happened. A sudden alert flared across the battle map. "Sir," a tactical officer called out. "Multiple enemy vessels attempting retreat. High-speed FTL signatures detected." Locke's gaze narrowed. He had no intention of allowing the Dominion to escape unscathed. "Fire the interdiction fields," he ordered. Space twisted. Gravity wells flared to life. The fleeing Selvani ships found themselves yanked back into real space, their FTL drives overloaded in an instant. No escape. No mercy. One by one, the Dominion's forces were torn apart. The battle that had started as an invasion had turned into a massacre. As the last Selveni vessel was reduced to drifting wreckage, a heavy silence settled over the command deck. The enemy was broken. The Imperium had returned. Locke exhaled slowly, his gaze never leaving the void beyond. This was only the beginning. The silence after the battle was heavy. Debris drifted in the void, broken remains of what had once been a proud Selveni armada. Fires still burned in the husks of shattered warships, their flickering embers swallowed by the darkness of space. On the bridge of the Judicator, Admiral Varian Locke stood with an expression of quiet calculation. The battle had been swift, brutal, and one-sided. The Imperium had not just survived its long exile. It had become something far greater. But Locke knew this was only the beginning. "Status report," he ordered. "All enemy forces eliminated. No survivors detected." An officer confirmed. "Minimal damage to our fleet. Shields are already regenerating." Locke gave a slow nod. As expected. The Dominion had been powerful once, a force that had driven humanity to the brink of extinction. But now they were outdated. The Imperium's technology, preserved in isolation, had outpaced the rest of the galaxy. And yet, something still didn't sit right with him. He turned to another officer. "What about enemy communications? Any sign they sent distress signals?" The comms officer hesitated. "Sir, we detected multiple outgoing signals. Some were standard distress calls. But one." She tapped a control panel, bringing up the data on a holo display. It was encrypted, high-level Dominion coding, and it was directed toward an unknown destination. Locke's fingers curled slightly. "Can we trace it?" "Negative, sir. The signal pattern doesn't match any known relay networks." Which meant one thing: that Selveni weren't the only ones listening. Locke exhaled slowly. This battle had been a warning shot, a test. Someone out there had been waiting for this moment, watching to see how the Imperium would respond. His thoughts were interrupted as the AI's voice echoed through the bridge. "Admiral, we are detecting incoming vessels." The tension in the room spiked instantly. "Selveni?" one of the officers asked. "No," the AI responded. "Signatures do not match any known Dominion vessels. However, energy readings suggest highly advanced technology." Locke turned sharply. "How many?" A brief pause. "One." Locke frowned. "One ship." "Affirmative." "Size?" "Colossal. Mass readings indicate it is larger than any known battleship class." The holoscreen flickered, bringing up an image of the approaching vessel. As soon as Locke saw it, a chill ran down his spine. It was massive, easily the size of a station. Its hull was black as the void, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Strange, shifting patterns ran across its surface, as if the ship itself was alive. The bridge was dead silent. Every officer stared at the image, unease creeping into their eyes. "Admiral," the AI continued, "the vessel is not emitting any known transponder signals. It is neither broadcasting threats nor hailing us." "Then what is it doing?" A brief pause. "It is simply watching." Locke clenched his jaw. This was no ordinary ship, no standard war vessel. Someone, or something, had been waiting for humanity to rise again. And now that the Imperium had stepped into the light once more, they had drawn the attention of a force that had remained hidden until now. A presence that did not fear them. A presence that had expected this moment. Locke inhaled deeply, his mind racing. The Imperium had proven its strength against the Dominion. But whatever this was, it had not come to fight. Not yet. It had come to observe. "You said." The massive ship loomed in the void, motionless yet unshakably present. The Judicator's sensors pulsed against its surface, but the readings made no sense. It absorbed scans like a black hole, swallowing every attempt to probe its structure. No energy spikes, No weapons charging. Nothing. Yet Admiral Varian Locke felt the weight of its presence. The bridge of the Judicator was deathly quiet, officers waiting for orders, hands hovering over weapons controls. The thing out there had made no hostile move, but neither had it left. It simply watched. The AI finally spoke. "Admiral, the unknown vessel is initiating a transmission." Locke's gaze flickered. "Open the channel." For a second, nothing happened. Then, a voice echoed through the bridge. Deep, hollow, ancient. "Humanity has awakened." The word sent a chill through every officer. There was no distortion, no accent, no delay. Whoever, or whatever, spoke knew their language perfectly. Locke stepped forward. His voice remained steady. "Who are you?" A brief silence. Then the voice returned. "We remember you." Locke narrowed his eyes. "Remember?" Before he could respond, the holoscreen flickered. Data surged through their systems, downloading at speeds beyond anything the Imperium had encountered. Thousands of encrypted files, battle records, historical logs, and one image, an ancient symbol of a long-forgotten age. The Imperium's insignia, a symbol older than any surviving human record. The officers around the bridge stared at it, horror dawning in their eyes. "Sir," one officer whispered, This is from before the fall, before the war, before the galaxy turned on us." Locke exhaled slowly. The implications were impossible. And yet, here it was. Someone had preserved humanity's history. Someone had watched, waiting for their return. "Are you human?" he asked. The voice responded instantly. "No." A cold knot formed in Locke's stomach. "Then what are you?" This time, the voice paused. And then, in a tone that carried the weight of ages, it answered, "We were once your allies." The bridge froze. Locke felt his pulse slow, his mind racing through every possibility. Allies. But humanity had been alone when it fell. The records had been clear. Every species had betrayed them. So who, then? Before he could press for answers, the black ship finally moved. No engines flared. No heat signatures emerged. It simply slid back into the void, vanishing like a shadow. And as it left, the AI whispered the final transmission they received. "The war is not over." The meaning was clear. Humanity had thought itself forgotten, thought it had returned to a changed galaxy. But something out there had never stopped watching. And now it was time for the true war to begin.